Hi guys, it's the Walk-In 00 Dead here, back finally with an anime review, and it's going to be of Shiki. This is 22 episodes long. You might have seen that I unboxed it the other day, and I've absolutely smashed this out, so I can't do a first impressions, so it's going to be a review. What can I say about Shiki? Magnifico. The basic plot summary for Shiki. Shiki takes place between July and November, and it's set in a small, remote village surrounded by trees and mountains, and it's kind of shaped like the tip of the spear. A strange and fatal unknown disease sweeps the residents, and within a few short weeks, the death toll for this small village is suspiciously really high. The villagers demand answers, and to their horror, they soon realise that the cause of the shocking death rate is not a epidemic like they first thought, but it's rather the works of the undead. But most of the villagers completely deny this, and they think it's silly superstition and just silly rumours, and that it's actually a fatal disease, so no one believes anybody that it's the undead coming back and killing everybody. The series starts off at quite a slow pace, but this is to introduce its characters and set up the village. At the same time, the mysterious deaths and disappearing villagers sets up the scene for mystery and intrigue. When the bodies start to pile up, panic ensues, and the series starts to pick up pace with a sense of urgency to discover how to stop this disease and what's going on and what's killing everybody. Shiki's greatest narrative strength is how it shows the villagers' varied reactions to what's going on and this plague that's killing everybody in the town. All of the stories from all of the different villages blends together really nicely, and the contrast of villagers' beliefs to what's going on makes the show a lot more gripping. Only a small number of people actually know the truth, but they come up against a wall of pure denial from the rest of the villagers, and but the main good guys won't give up until these thick-headed villagers see sense and see that this isn't a disease that's killing everybody. Shiki intentionally blurs the line between self-preservation and murder. It asks the question of when Shiki feed on their victims in order to survive. Are their actions more murderous than a human's eating cattle, cows and chickens and all that sort of stuff? In the first half of the series, you definitely feel for the villagers and all these characters you invested in. You don't want them to die and you want them to live. But in the second half of the series, when the Shiki have become the hunted, you feel for the Shiki, because of all the pain and all the sorrow and all the suffering they're going through. Because the characters that you've invested in that have died, they're still these characters that you've liked. So it's really interesting to see what happens to them now that they're undead. The villagers are now the ones that become evil, even though slaughtering the undead is necessary to save the village itself. The moral questions are asked, what is the point where panic becomes madness, or when does self-defense basically become cold-blooded murder? So who really are the victims? Is it the villagers that are victims, or is it the Shiki that have become the victims? And it's really interesting. It makes the show awesome, and it really makes you think. So next up I'm going to talk about the characters. A lot of the characters are introduced simply to die and come back as Shiki, though it's a lot easier to feel the gravity of the rise in death toll when characters you start dying left, right and centre. You think a character is going to be a main character, bang, dead. You think, oh, this guy, he's going to be the main character, bang, dead. You think, whoa, who's going to be the main protagonist in this series? And it's kind of is anybody the main protagonist? But it's really cool how it does this. It's really interesting to watch villagers who have risen, and to see what happens to them. Now that they're dead, how are they going to behave? How is their personality going to change? Will they go out and kill people? Will they go out and kill people who they didn't like when they were alive for revenge? Or are they going to struggle to overcome the guilt of killing loved ones? Seeing a Shiki cry as they plunge their fangs into a loved one's neck, for me really added character depth, and it really it made more to I invested more into the Shiki characters. Because you start to feel really sorry for these guys. Some of them were loving being Shikis and they were loving killing people, whereas some of them felt super guilty and they didn't want to kill anybody at all, and they would rather die than actually kill anybody. For me personally, the Doctor is my favourite character. He becomes the villagers sort of leader and the villagers strength, and he's this chain-smoking, intelligent, grisly, badass character. I loved him. He's so cool. It's great to watch him sort of slowly over time sort of crack up under the pressure, and he goes a little bit insane. And all I've got to say is the scenes with his with his wife are tremendous, because he really starts to become sort of like a mad scientist in a sense, which I thought was really cool. And you have other great characters like Megami. Her story's like really quite tragic. I really liked her. I did actually want it to like escape at the end of it. I don't know if anyone else did. And then you got Natsuno, who you think is going to be a main character, and let's just say something happens to him. But you know, he's one of the first people to find out what the Shiki are, and his whole like story is like really interesting as well. And the young monk, I can't remember his technical name, he's like the moral voice of the village, and he's torn between like right and wrong, and he doesn't like killing any sort of like God's creatures, if you get what I mean. So he's always like, is it right to kill the Shiki even if they are killing the villagers themselves? And then you've got Sunako, I believe that's how you pronounce her name, who as well is a very like tragic character with a really great like backstory, and she's like a very intelligent character, and her morals of like survival are like very interesting as well. So she has like really great intelligent like conversations with the young monk up in like the temple, because she's actually a Shiki. The really cool thing about Shiki themselves is they're not your like stereotypical vampires and little glittery, you know. Some of them do like feel guilt for killing, or they just refuse to kill, and some absolutely love killing. But they aren't particularly that strong, and I suppose it physically only comes down to the person that's been turned. They don't like gain like massive physical strength, but they do gain speed, and they do gain the ability to like super heal really quickly. And every like in daylight they sort of like go into a coma, and then they wake up at night. And, like this coma, they can't be woken up at all. And the only way they technically can be killed is they can be burnt by sunlight, or they can have a stake shoved through the heart, or they could be decapitated. So they do die in that sort of way. And there's also like hybrid Shiki called Jinros, which are essentially like daywalkers. They can go out in the day, and they can also eat like human food, and they need very little like blood basically, and they're much stronger like physically, and like they're much faster than Shiki, and they're very rare. And there's only, I believe there's only 3 Jinros in Shiki, and they're all really cool characters. The soundtrack perfectly complements, you know, the creepy atmosphere of the show, and it works really, really well to heighten like the tension and like horror scenes, or like where someone's getting chased by a Shiki, and you're like, oh man, is this person going to get killed? Are they going to get away? Sort of thing. And also sound effects are top notch, from you know like bone cracking, like the dull thud of a stake going through the chest of a Shiki, and something I really, really liked was all the like the chirping of all the insects in the summer heat. This really gave me that atmosphere of, it was like really hot, and it made me feel like really hot, because you know it's like, you know, like crickets and all that sort of shit. It just gave you like the psychological impression in your mind that it was like really hot, and I absolutely love that. I thought it was such a cool little touch they did in the series. And for the dub, I've got to say, absolutely solid dub cast with brilliant performances. You know, the guys brought out the emotions in the characters, you know, perfectly for me. And I thought all the voices fitted all the characters, and I have absolutely no complaints whatsoever about the dub. I thought it was brilliant, absolutely top notch. So we're going to move on to animation. Shiki has some really bizarre character designs, but this really helps the characters sort of like stand out. And some of the Shikis have got some really odd like designs, especially some really odd like hairstyles, which I thought was really cool. And there are some scenes where they turn everything in like horror scenes, like all black and white, or they use like really odd colours. And it kind of looks like the panels of like a manga, in a little bit of a sense. And but there is a brilliant use of colours and like shadings. Everything looks absolutely gorgeous. Something that really impressed me with the animation was like facial expressions, when there's like horror and fear on people's faces, or you know, you felt they were like really sad, and you know, they've got really realistic sort of like facial expressions, and there was like a really realistic look to like blood as well, and how it like soaked into like the ground or objects or people's clothes or hair. You know, blood looked really good in this series, which it should, because it is you know, a series about vampires who suck blood, so blood should look really awesome in this. You know, blood splattering up against all the walls, tremendous, absolutely tremendous. There was tons of nice little touches throughout the entire series, which I really feel like I should mention. One of them is, in each episode there's like a date, so it's like Monday the 17th of July, whatever, you know, so you can see how much time has passed, and how, you know, and it gives you, it really feels like, oh my god, so many people are dying in such a short like space of time, which I thought was like a really nice touch. And also every single character, when they first get introduced, no matter who they are, whether they're a main character or some just little cannon fodder that get killed, like a little title comes up with their name, their job occupation, like what they do obviously, and what their relation is to any other characters. So like say it's like a daughter or a mother or father or brother-in-law to a certain character, it will say that, which I thought was like another awesome little touch they gave you, because obviously it's like this small packed little village. And also like when you go to like new areas in the map, obviously that comes up with like blah 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 shrine, the such and such clinic, which I thought was like really really cool. And on the Blu-rays themselves, in the Blu-ray menus, I thought there was nice little touches of the creepy sound effects when you move along and the eerie music. I thought that was a really cool little touch. So Shiki does some nice little touches to it. So my final thoughts on Shiki. This series honestly really reminds me of why I love anime, and the fact there can be so many awesome stories in anime, like about a village that's getting overrun by vampires. Oh god, and things like ninjas in orange jumpsuits that want to become Hokage, and people that live in outer space who work as bin men. Anime has got so many cool stuff, but this really reminded me why I love anime. Such a good story, such a good dub, such a good cast of characters, music, just a brilliant atmosphere. Just absolutely loved it. Shiki is more than just a vampire story with loads of blood and gore. It's about the nature of humanity and the lengths people will go to like in order to like survive. Shiki blends like mystery, horror, intrigue. It asks like moral questions from the viewers. This show really gets you thinking. What's right and wrong, what's good and evil, who was right, was it the villagers, was it the Shiki? It's such a good series. I also really love the fact that the characters who you assume are going to be the main characters, they're going to be the heroes in this series, just end up as like casualties. This guy's going to be a main character, dead, like that. It's extremely well like paced, and it's really effective at creating an astounding atmosphere. I absolutely love the atmosphere in this series. Totally fell in love with this. I smashed it out in the space of like 2 days. It's a real shame it's only 22 episodes long. I thought the ending wrapped up things like really really well, but it did leave it a little bit open for maybe another series down the line, so hopefully that would be really really great if they did. I'd highly recommend you check out Shiki. I'd give it a 9 out of 10. Honestly, when I do my top 30 anime list, when I update it, this has knocked something out of my top 10 list. I don't know what it's going to be yet, but this will be in my top 10, no doubt about it. So guys, drop me a comment down below. Whose side were you on if you've seen Shiki? Did you feel more for the villagers, or did you feel more for the Shiki themselves? Just give me your overall thoughts on Shiki, guys. Don't give any spoilers to anyone down in the box down below, because this is such a great series. If you found my stuff and you like it, please subscribe. Also drop me a comment, do you want to see more of me on camera when I do reviews, or do you want me to go back to my old style? I thought I'd just change it up and do something a little bit more fresh. If you like my stuff, obviously subscribe. Go check out the Green Clan Studios, which is an anime collaboration channel I'm a part of. Support those guys, we do some awesome stuff. And give us the old thumbs up if you liked my Shiki review. Thanks for watching guys. Check out Shiki.